Sure.
Good topic now.
All right, so I'll explain this really simply. I was watching, like I said it earlier, I was watching NWA TNA, God knows why, but I was watching it the other day. AJ Styles is there in 2002. I remember watching him back then in TNA in 2002. True story. There was a match with him and Jerry Lynn on one of the early TNA pay-per-views that match and how great it was the reason that I checked out my first ROH show and like ordered the DVD back in 2002 also, because Jerry Lynn versus AJ Styles was a match on this DVD. It was on Road to the Title. And I was just like, oh man, I really like them in TNA against each other. I'm going to go check it out. And so like technically TNA also birthed my way into being an indie wrestling fan in a weird sort of way. But I'm getting away from the topic. So I was watching that and I was thinking to myself, man, AJ Styles really is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. What if he had just never left TNA? What if he had just decided to stay in Impact and be an Impact lifer, which God only knows why you would do that. But what if he had done that? Would he still be considered one of the greatest wrestlers of all time? And here's the thing. This topic isn't about AJ Styles. This topic is a general question. Do you think that a wrestler, male, female, whatever, can wrestle in only one company and still be considered one of the GOATs?
I don't see why not. Honestly. I mean...
Insert Johnson, Dwayne.
Yeah, exactly.
But see, is he one of the greatest wrestlers of all time? Or is he one of the biggest stars of all time? I feel
so are we talking about
he's one of the greatest sports entertainers of all time?
Right, like I don't think anyone's putting The Rock on their like Mount Rushmore of like in-ring performers or anything like that. But
yeah, you didn't specify that in the question. That's why I'm saying.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Tetsuya Naito, like guys like that, like, oh, is he one of the greatest of all time in ring? Probably not, but he has great matches every time he's in fucking New Japan. He's never been out of Japan. But it doesn't mean that he can't be on the GOAT list. He hasn't been seen by every person.
Okay.
WWE and the AEW people have, because it's not as accessible to people as the companies here. Like, here's the thing. Orange Cassidy, probably not going to be one of the greatest of all time.
Right.
But he's entertaining as fuck.
Yeah.
Right. But do you think if he ended up in WWE somehow and they pushed him to the moon somehow, like is that, or do you think he's an AEW lifer?
I think he's close to AEW lifer than the WWE. Yeah.
WWE, I don't think it would matter because he wouldn't be in one company his entire career.
Right.
Okay.
That's just the way you worded the question. So,
well, here's an interesting one. Like, and okay, is Mark Calloway one of the greatest of all time, or is The Undertaker one of the greatest of all time?
That's another one where I think it's,
you know what I mean. So I think it's a great question. It's a great topic. Like, The Undertaker is one of the greatest of all time.
Yes.
The Undertaker only wrestled in WWE. Like Mark Calloway or Mean Mark Callis or whatever random do they even count in the legacy of The Undertaker? Like, you don't do, and I get that, like, the Last Ride documentary was a Mark Calloway documentary, but I think I honestly, to the main point of the question though is I think it depends where you wrestle. Like, if you're somebody, and I'm not necessarily I'm not saying that The Miz is one of the greatest of all time, but like The Miz has only ever worked in WWE.
Right.
Like, I think The Miz is a tremendous sports entertainer.
Well, he won our IC title tournament last year.
Yeah.
So just saying.
But like somebody like him, if somehow, however it worked out. I mean, John Cena, I know he worked in like OVW and whatever, but let's be honest. John Cena's only
guy,
WWE. To me, if you talk about wrestling and if the name John Cena comes up, you could ask people who aren't even wrestling fans, and he's probably considered one of the greatest of all time.
True.
So I think it's possible. I think it's a matter of where you work and how your longevity and the heights that you get within that company. If you get the heights of Impact,
right.
I think access and
maybe it's only
location
WWE. Maybe WWE is the only company just because of the reach.
Well, it's interesting because take someone like Jay Lethal, who again, Ernest, you probably don't even know who the fuck I'm talking about. You guys do. I'm positive of that. Jay Lethal. Some people would put him on their list of like one of the greater wrestlers of the generation, really great talent, yada, yada, yada. He's never made it further than Impact. He's ROH and Impact. Right. Is that going to stop him from ever being like in a serious conversation for like greatest of all time? Yeah. You know what I mean?
It'll definitely influence it because I think access and location are the key points here to this conversation. So WWE obviously is a standing barrier for pro wrestling. Now, let's say in 10 years AEW still exists. Maybe they have a
WCW. Explain to us how Jay Lethal can win the world title from Roman Reigns.
Could I argue Sting? Because I know he went WWE,
but it was everywhere.
But it wasn't his fault though.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, they went under.
W and not fucking went to Impact and.
He's literally been everywhere. Like
before WCW, he was NWA, was he not?
Yeah, he was like right at the end there. Yeah, like 88 or so.
Bad example.
But he's also he's been in TNA, he's been in AEW,
back to Ernest's comment on
access and location.
Here's the thing. Ring of Honor is accessible.
It's very accessible, actually.
You choose not to watch it because you don't know what the fuck Ring of Honor is. That doesn't mean it's not accessible.
Wait. I never said it was. I didn't. Whoa. I didn't call out Ring of Honor. I didn't call it Impact. I just said access and location matters to a lot of folks. I didn't say Ring of Honor is not a place that should be considered.
That's the problem. The comment was wrestling for a company. And the only reason why Jay Lethal would not be in my ballot is because he's been an X Division champion in Impact and he's been the Ring of Honor World Champion. That's two separate places for me. That's why he would not be qualified to be in my discussion based off of your comment.
Right.
But he is accessible, and there is someone that's Ring of Honor only exclusive that I would consider to be a guy that you could have a conversation about being one of the greatest. And his team could be one of the greatest tag teams of all time.
Briscoes? Jay Briscoe?
Yes.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
And Mark Briscoe.
Okay, it cut off. That's why you can hear it.
So here's the thing. When I think of Jay Lethal, just because, he's in Ring of Honor. He was in Impact. It wasn't WWE. That doesn't do that. That isn't the thing that moves the needle for me.
Right.
The needle for me is Jay Lethal's in Ring of Honor. Jay Lethal had 5 4-star matches over the last 6 weeks with Jonathan Gresham, Jay Briscoe, like insert random Ring of Honor guys here. He's having great in-ring matches. Like Roman Reigns can have 97 matches. If they're all 1-star matches, he's not in that conversation, but I guarantee you 90% of the people that listen to this podcast would put him on their list. Because it's
that makes sense.
Right.
Dog shit. To be brutally honest, that's dog shit. Because just because Jay Lethal doesn't fit the build of Vince McMahon or the look of Vince McMahon doesn't take anything away from the fact that he's one of the greatest in-ring performers going in wrestling today. That's why, that would be a real conversation for me if he hadn't been a star in Impact and a star in Ring of Honor.
Right.
That's why the Briscoes are a little bit in that conversation for me because they are one of the better tag teams that have been in wrestling over the last.
Oh, yeah.
They've had great matches with Kevin Steen and El Generico. They've had great matches with Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black at the Age of the Fall. They've had good matches recently with Rush's Los Incredinobles de America or whatever they're called. But the thing is, right now, you don't have to be that guy that's specific to WWE to be in this conversation. I'm going to throw a name out there that if he stays in AEW is going to be on this list. It's not a conversation. It's not it's Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
I was going to Hangman Page.
AF. The only problem with Adam Page is that he was on Ring of Honor for a while.
True.
When they were on a national syndicated television show. I know that MJF was in MLW and they have YouTube, but that's a little bit harder to find. You have to go search that out.
Right. That's like Cena in OVW.
Right.
That's why I would say Cena would be in that conversation with
Sure.
me. OVW was their developmental territory at the time.
Right.
Wrestling at the
Orton belongs in the conversation.
Correct.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Orton, definitely.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
But looking ahead, like MJF's a guy that if he does not leave AEW, I could absolutely see him being a guy that's absolutely on this list.
Definitely.
He's been a guy who's basically just shoved Chris Jericho to his death.
Right.
Has basically become, that's the way I can put this, because I don't want to compare him to Ric Flair. I really don't. But it's kind of like he's become AEW's Ric Flair.
100%.
He joins this group, turns on this group, forms his own group, and he's basically got the Horsemen. It's
Yes, most heat the company.
The FTR plays the roles of Arn and Tully. He is Flair. He has Tully as James J. Dillon. And Wardlow is the Sid Vicious, Barry Windham muscle of the group.
Right.
And we have Shawn Spears who's just hitting people with chairs. I mean, whatever. It's cool. I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of this is like, of the future guys, this is the guy that I'm like, if we're going somewhere with somebody staying in one company and being the GOAT, being on that GOAT list, it's MJF.
Right.
Because I don't think there's somebody right now in WWE, because they're not really hiring people that haven't wrestled somewhere else. They're getting the Evolve Wrestling guys. They're getting the Ring of Honor guys when their contracts are up. They're getting people from Impact. They're getting people, they haven't got anybody from AEW, but I guarantee you within a couple years there'll be someone that leaves AEW that comes to WWE and vice versa. So, I mean, another name, just throwing this out there for a future thing, if he never leaves WWE, that could be a very entertaining conversation. I know Joe isn't going to follow this one because he doesn't like the guy, and that's okay. I mean, I don't know if you don't like him, but Karrion Kross.
I don't dislike him. I just think he's kind of vanilla.
He needs to expand on some things. He needs to change stuff.
I think he needs to go to the main roster. Everything about his presentation is Raw or SmackDown.
I can see that.
I agree.
His presentation isn't NXT.
Not that he's at all closely relatable character, but like Elias was the same situation.
Yeah.
Elias felt so out of place in NXT. You put him over on Raw, and he was like, "Oh wow, okay, I get it now."
Like one name that I think, because I don't believe she wrestled anywhere else, is Charlotte.
Well, the women are a whole other topic.
I mean, Charlotte. I mean, build for build is one of the best women wrestlers, if not the best. That's a whole nother debate of all time. And I don't think she's ever going to be anywhere but WWE.
That's like the women are a whole other story, because it's not like you have a lot of women to go back on in history. I mean, like,
right.
you look at your Trishas and your Litas, but there was no place else to go. Like, you're not going to Impact or whatever,
right.
In China, same thing. Like, she showed up at Impact for like a cup of coffee, but like that was so far later. But like I feel like the women right now, because most of them are kind of just direct WWE like training, they got them going. So like I'm not going to be surprised if there's a generation of female wrestlers who never leave WWE.
Right.
Like I'm not going to be surprised if the Four Horsewomen are forever in WWE, and kind of like that. I do think that's an interesting aspect to it also, because I feel like one day, look, some woman is going to be the first one to make the big jump over to AEW and like actually send a shockwave or two. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if there's anyone obvious. Maybe one day it'll be Oscar or something like that. But, I feel like in general, most of the women are probably kind of where they are. And the ones that are outside of WWE probably want to get into WWE pretty badly.
Right.
Well, my biggest thing with this topic, and it'll be, is I think perception plays a big part into this, and this isn't a slight on Ring of Honor or Jay Lethal or even the Briscoe, anybody. is if you're and I look at it from like a sports perspective. If you're the best player to have ever played in the Arena Football League, or you're the best player to ever play in the
Someone's
AHL
awake.
in hockey, but you never make it or get big in the NFL or National Hockey League or anything like that. Are you really the greatest hockey player of all time? Are you really the greatest football player? And I know sports and wrestling, it's not necessarily a fair comparison. So I think for a lot of people, the perception of this, and obviously it's all opinion based regardless, but I think the perception is like if you don't get to WCW back in the day, or WWE now, or potentially WWE/AEW in the next few years, is were you that great, or were you just the best of the rest?
That makes sense. Yeah, it's like kind of like WWE and AEW now to a degree are like the big leagues, and it has always been kind of presented that way in a lot of ways. I mean, it's funny because and this will probably be the last thing I say on this topic, but like a guy like Daniel Bryan, who prior to his WWE run was already probably my second favorite wrestler of all time. And I would have already sat here and been like, look, okay, even if he had only ever worked in Ring of Honor for his entire career, he would still be one of the GOATs. I don't care if nobody else knows who the hell he is. It helps that he ended up in WWE and like everyone knows who the hell he is, right? Like it helps that now like there are plenty of kids who would say that he's their favorite wrestler too. I still feel like, hey, I knew the cool band before you did, whatever. Like I stole Fall Out Boy's first CD from my college radio station.
Of course you do.
Before they were fucking doing whatever they do now.
Facts.